So Kyrie, God bless him. He's trying to make amends. There's people are very torn on the pro Kyrie, anti Kyrie bandwagons as far as what he's tweeting and how responsible he is. I'll tell you something. As a Jewish person, and seeing what he retweeted on and why he got suspended, the film that's being referred to is still posted on Amazon, and you can still watch it. So explain to me who the real culprits are. So I actually agree with that. That where as far as we should be going to the source, not just the messenger of it. But that being said, I think Kyrie just stepped over the lines a few one too many times, and they were just ready for him, and they're saying like, okay, enough is enough. And on top of that, he's done with Nike, so the shoe deal's done. But that was going to be done regardless. He's the one who came out and said on his last edition, "It is the crappiest shoe. I don't know who would buy this." I don't know, man, but if I have a deal with Nike, I'm not saying this kind of stuff. I can't believe how dumb they are. Like, he thought he was invincible because everybody loves the Kyries. Well, no, you're done now. So no more shoe endorsement. He is back in playing in the NBA. So a rumor that I read, and this is the only one that I like. I had a couple of rumors now. One popped up on my feed yesterday that I dug through. So Kyrie's apparently heading to one of two places now. The one that I like the most is him still heading to the Lakers. LeBron saying, "This is such a shit show where I am right now. If you give us KD as well, I'll take Kyrie under my wing. No worries." So they won't take Kyrie without KD. That makes sense to me. You can take Unibrow. You can take Westbrook. Both of these guys are going to go. Bring in KD and Kyrie. That would be very interesting, I think, with LeBron on the Lakers. The other one is the Miami Heat saying he may be going over there. So what are your thoughts on this? Have you been following Kyrie closely? Do you think he's going to one of those places?
I think he has to go from where he is. I think there's no question that there has to be some move. And I think the Lakers makes the most sense. I don't know about LeBron taking anybody under his wing. I don't necessarily, again. And as for Kyrie's tweets and all that kind of stuff, again, the guy's a basketball player, not a professor or anything like that. Just shut up. Shut up and play basketball. How difficult is that, right? I'm not saying you shouldn't have an opinion, but the world, we're not waiting with bated breath, or maybe I guess a lot of people are waiting with bated breath to see what Kyrie Irving has to say about certain things. And again, why? Why do you care what he has to think about these things? If you want to make a personal judgment as to whether you want to be a fan of Kyrie Irving based on his beliefs and thoughts and things like that, 100%, that's certainly your call to make, right? But there's no reason for you to know any of that, and there's no reason for Kyrie to tell us. Like, who cares, right? But I do think that it makes a lot of sense that he would end up with Los Angeles. My gosh, though, it just makes me happy to know that LeBron is suffering. I mean,
Why is that?
because I don't like him. I think he's a disingenuous creep, right? I just, this whole thing of kissing China's butt during all of this stuff with the NBA and backing them and telling more, basically when Maury came out and said maybe we should think about our relationship with the Chinese and pushing the NBA there, and LeBron was just smooch, right? I just don't like the guy. And I feel it's duplicitous, right? Again, if you're going to dislike Kyrie for certain things, I'm going to dislike LeBron for certain things because I just feel like he's more about money than he is anything else. Not that I'm saying I'm a fan of Kyrie personally either, but
No, you're allowed. You're allowed.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. Sorry, just somebody walking by there that had to wave at. I'm just not a fan of the guy, and it does not bother me in the least. Ever since the announcement, when he announced where he was going, that's just like, dude, could you be more self-important? Like, I know it's a manufactured thing and all that, but my God, have a little humility and just go, wait, you know what? We're not going to do this. I'm just not going to do this.
I think the fact, if he was staying in his hometown, the announcement would have been a huge success. But doing this to your hometown and then them burning the jerseys in the streets, that was not the best move.
I love my hometown, and I'm all about my hometown, and blah, 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 blah. And let's make a big production so then I can crap all over my hometown in front of everybody. Yeah, that's pretty disingenuous, man.
What about the Miami Heat? They're kind of done with Lowry as far as his injuries and his age. So they're going to Brooklyn. They're saying, listen, how about Lowry? He's a good guy. Take him and give us another and another piece, and we will take Irving off your hands. Do you like Kyrie on Miami, or do you think that's going to be an absolute shit show if that happens?
I don't necessarily know that adding Kyrie Irving doesn't turn any team into a bit of a show, just because you've got all the other stuff going on. And you know, I look at franchises who want to bring him in. I understand he's a very talented player, but I look at the franchises who are talking about bringing him in and thinking, what? Why are you doing? Why are you interested in doing this? I mean, do you really think that it's going to change just because he comes to your place? I look at the other franchises who are not saying, "Hey, we're in on the Kyrie show," and I think these are probably the franchises that have their crap together, right? As opposed to Miami and the Lakers, who are just running around grasping at straws. Oh my God, get us Kyrie, and if we put him with LeBron, things will be amazing. No, they won't. You might be a marginally better basketball team, but you still have not a whole lot, right? And then you're just going to have to deal with all the other crap. I don't know. Maybe that's what they want. If they're not going to be good, at least they'll be in the news all the time.
I was telling a story last night. Steve Carsey on the Chosen Journey, our docu series in baseball, and he told the story of when he got traded for John Rocker. Okay, so he was having a great year with Cleveland, and that was the year he would have made the All-Star game, but they traded him midseason, and Rocker was imploding obviously in Atlanta. Cleveland says, you know what, we're going to take more. He comes with more years of control. Maybe we'll turn him around because he used to be the best closer in baseball. So Rocker goes to Cleveland, and Steve Carsey goes to the Braves. And Steve Carsey says when he comes to the Braves locker room for the first time, he enters in there, and they all look around at him. He gets a standing ovation. And I think it was Maddox came up to him and said, "You have no idea how happy we are to see you. We are so relieved." And so it makes me think, this is literally like a John Rocker type situation as far as just the volatility in the dressing room and everything else. And you know what? I can't even the we talk about the Raptors quite a bit because the Raptors us being based around the Toronto area and that being in the basketball team that's nearby here. I can't see Masai Ujiri taking Kyrie Irving for $1. That's what they said, for $1, because he doesn't want him in that locker room at all.
And that's how you can have a pretty good feeling about the Raptors as a whole, as a franchise, when you pretty much know that your GM, if they called and said, look, we'll just give you Kyrie Irving for a second round pick next year. The only reason that the Raptors would do that is that Ujiri would just flip him immediately somewhere else. He doesn't want him in the locker room. And I'll never understand. That's a great story about Carsey and Rocker. And I absolutely can. I have a bit of insight to the Braves locker room because I have a friend who knew Smoltz and a couple of other guys who played for the Braves at the time, right? I will never understand how people feel like, well, they're professionals. They don't have to get along in the locker room. Think about how miserable it made you when you were younger, let's say, and you worked in a McDonald's or you worked in a retail setting, and there was some jackass that you had to go in and deal with every day at work. And it just made things uncomfortable and upsetting. And now figure that these guys are together 24/7 pretty much for 8 months of the year, traveling around constantly. You can't get away from the guy. I mean, he's clearly nuts, partially nuts, or just so narcissistic that he can't see that the things he's doing are bad for the team. And so if you're able to move a guy, I mean, exactly, I feel like they would just be like, whatever we can get for Kyrie, just get him out of here, right? And same with Rocker and guys like that. Yeah. So I've never understood why people say, "Wow, they're professionals. They can get along just fine." I'm reading a book right now called The Gas House Gang about the Cardinals in the 30s, and the number of fist fights in the locker room between factions of the team, right? But they always talk about how eventually the guys made up. It was not fist fights about, big life-changing things. It was just basically you're getting on my nerves, and it was more likely that two dudes were just going to punch each other out in the 30s. I mean, you have to remember back in the 30s, there were times that people punched umps, and there were fights like that, especially in the minor leagues and things like that, right? These were rougher dudes. And yet they still all came together, figured out a way to make it work. I mean, there are very few teams out there. Maybe the Athletics in the 70s, they were very notoriously a bunch that did not like each other, but then they all came together because they all hated Charlie O'Finley, the owner, so much that no matter how much they disliked one another, they hated Charlie O'Finley more. And so they had some common thing to come around, right? I don't know how you ever get to a point where if you've got Kyrie in the locker room constantly talking crap and spouting this, that, and the other, how it ever goes away. You're never able to bury it and just tell him, just focus on the game, right? You got to clear him out.
My last question on this topic, because it came to me now, because I recall from my conversations with Dan Milstein, the hockey agent, and he when he got Evander Kane under his belt, and he got him that contract with Edmonton, and he was off to a great start until he got injured, unfortunately, freak accident. But Milstein didn't come to Evander Kane. Evander Kane came to him and said, "I know you're the guy, and you'll be able to get this squared away for me." And that was a pretty cool story when Milstein shared it on the air with us. But my question is like this: there are these agents out there, and the job of the agent is not just to get you that big contract, get you the endorsement. It's to take care. A real good agent takes care of everything. Like, I've seen ones where they help them relocate, find them the home, get their families squared away, get the listing of the schools. Situations come up with family if they have to bring somebody in or fly somebody out, whatever. And they're involved like in every aspect of it. If I was a agent to a sports player, like an athlete, I would be looking at their social media 24/7 or have somebody viewing this, and I'd be on top of this right away. Like a guy like Kyrie, I would get him a special phone. It would have the numbers to dial out phone calls, maybe text messages, but we would have it a setting so they cannot swear on there. And that's all he'd be allowed to do on his phone. I'm like, we're taking away all your social media. It's done. Somebody from the agency is going to be posting nice generic messages, motivational messages, whatever, but you're not doing this anymore. And when these athletes implode, I think that the first person they should be blaming is their agent. Like, why did you not? What am I paying you 10% of my income for? What the heck are you doing here?
Well, there was a fella, and I can't remember his name right now. He was on the 32 Thoughts podcast a few weeks ago with American Friedman. And it was a gentleman who is an agent, but he's basically developing an all-in, you know, uh, health and wellness, real estate, all that sort of thing, all of that stuff, all under one umbrella. So when they take a client on, that guy not only are they handling it, but they're taking care of all of that. Yeah. My question would be, what agent would take on Kyrie Irving and not think that this is what's going to happen, right? I mean, this skeleton guy was talking about the fact that they have meetings, and he turns down clients because he says, "I just think this is going to be such a headache for me trying to deal with this guy or the family or whatever else. I don't want to be a part of it. He's not part of our group, right?" So yeah, I agree with you that the agent is supposed to be supplying some of that stuff, but Kyrie's a grown man, right? At some point, you have to look at a grown man and go, you are responsible for yourself, and if you're not able to control yourself from doing stupid crap like this, then remove that out of the equation. I don't know. I mean, I guess the agent could go over and just smack the phone out of his hands, or they could have somebody follow him around like he's a toddler and put him on one of those leashes or whatever, right? But I mean, other than that, he's a grown man, for gosh sakes. Either you're eventually going to have some sense you're going to get some sense into your head, or you're not. But I'm surprised that his agent hasn't just, you know what, you're on your own. I don't know who his agent is. I don't know who he's with, but
I think very likely you're going to see a case where he's still going to have talent in the tank, and all of a sudden he's not going to get a contract and he'll be heading overseas. That's what tends to happen.